Manahan.
Don't patronize me.
Take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Let's see if we earn one of those at the end, not at the beginning. My name is Rowan, and I am not happy. My name is Rowan, and I am not inclined towards happiness because I am Irish. This notion here, starting with Aristotle, more recently with this unpronounceable Danish word, which I'm not even going to try. I bite something or other. Okay, whatever. This notion, this does not run where I come from. We have bigger things to worry about where I come from. Has anyone here ever been to Ireland? Yeah? Were people nice? Were they friendly? Yeah? Well, they were lying to you. What's Ireland famous for? Thank you. In Ireland, we get a lot of rain. I mean a lot of rain. Donald Trump himself says that in Ireland, it rains 379 days a year. Bigly. Now that may be an alternative fact, but here are some real anecdotes. This is my birthday last year, mid-July. This is the Garden Summer Festival. This is Midsummer's Day. And here is the end of year celebration for the summer holidays in the local school. Now, we all know that the plural of anecdotes is not data. So let me give you some data, given that we don't trust Trump and we don't trust anecdotal evidence. Here's some real data. This is from the Irish Weather Service, the Met Éireann Weather Service. And this is the rainfall map averaged over 20 years of how many millimeters of rain falls by region in Ireland. And just as a guideline, this is how tall I am. And that is at the top of my head, which is not much use for breathing, which is why all Irish children, when they are born, are issued by the government with a social security number, a birth certificate, and a snorkel. We are not concerned with workplace happiness. We're concerned with being able to breathe. Now, I'm fortunate. I live over here in the capital city, Dublin, which occupies about 1.5% of the land space, and 30% of the population are all standing like this, living there, because it's the only place where the water doesn't come above here. So I was open when I met this fellow. Have you met this guy? Yeah? I was open when I met this fellow, and he started warbling on about this thing that we can't pronounce. And I was thinking, this is very interesting. I don't know if it's going to gain traction anywhere in the world, but it's certainly not going to gain traction in Ireland, not when everybody's walking around with a snorkel in their mouth. But he persisted, and he persisted like a happy muppet. And we did a radio program together in Ireland, and the host on the radio program said, "Your friend is wonderful. He's so cheerful. He's like the Swedish chef." Because, you know, Alexander, like all Danes, wouldn't be at all offended by being compared with a Swede when he is in fact Danish, in the same way as Canadian people don't care when you call them Americans. The same radio host said, "Well, if he's the Swedish chef, Rowan, you're Oscar the Grouch." Who is clearly Irish, given that he is, as you can see, green. But I became more and more intrigued by this notion of happiness in the workplace, and can it exist, and should it exist, and does it exist, and how's it going, and is it growing, is it declining, is it flat, what's happening? So I started reading, and I started learning, and I started exchanging with my excellent friends over here in Denmark. And what we've discovered is, like so many other facets of the human condition, this of course exists on a bell curve. And we have a handful of people over here on the right-hand side. This would, for instance, would be the research out of Gallup, where you have a small proportion of highly engaged, highly happy, highly satisfied, a small proportion of actively disengaged people, and then a whole bunch of people in the middle who go, meh. My teenage children have a great word for this. Meh. Meh. And that's about how most people seem to feel about their relationship with their workplace. And I'm thinking, that's not healthy. There's got to be more to it than that. It can go better than that. And I had questions and no answers. So I turned to the repository of all knowledge, because I am, of course, a good Irish boy. I asked my mother. And Mum told me a couple of pieces of advice. The first one wasn't terribly useful. Her first piece of mother wisdom was that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Thanks, Mum, that's really helpful. I have a job. All of my income stream is coming from that. This would have been useful advice, Mum, if you had, I don't know, a logging company that you were going to leave me in your will. But instead, I've got to rely on actually earning a living. So all of my eggs are in one basket. Does anybody here have a forestry company that they're going to inherit it somewhere? Or have you written 10 best-selling spy novels or erotic thrillers on top of your day job? No, you see, this is the problem. Most of us have all of our eggs in this one basket. So given that, it's all the more imperative that we find our own source of fulfillment and happiness as we pursue that through life. Her second piece of wisdom was actually quite useful. This is Irish mother wisdom. People seem to stand in your way. People seem to be like a roadblock. People seem to be like a big rock in the middle of the road sometimes. And they're not doing that to undermine you. They're not doing that to belittle you. They're not doing that because they have a problem with you. They're doing that because they don't even know you're there. They're too busy paying attention to their own very important lives. People aren't against you. This means that your happiness becomes ever more important as being your responsibility. No one else, with the exception possibly of your mother, cares whether you're happy in life. You have to seek this out. This is why only a handful of people are actively pursuing this stuff. The rest are reading about it and going, oh, what a great idea, but not actually doing anything about it. And the third piece of wisdom in terms of how to pursue this through the course of one's working career, well, actually, this wasn't original, now that I think of it. She stole that, because she is, after all, Irish. This was Louis Pasteur who originally said that, but that's okay. We don't mind. So the first question, fundamental question here is, why does this matter? And I came across a beautiful remark from an English writer called Christopher Morley, and he talked about the 3 ingredients for a fulfilling life. And that is your life. That's your lifespan. He said a fulfilling life will have learning, earning, and yearning in it. But I don't think he realized how prophetic his words were and how they applied as we look at it in people's working lives. Because if you think about the span of a life, your first period is, of course, the learning years. And here you have no responsibility, no one expects anything of you. Pass a few exams, turn up at school, you don't have to pay for anything. Life is easy. Life is good from that point. So you have no brackets on your aspirations. You are unfettered in terms of your dreams and your hopes. For myself, I was going to be a train driver during the week and a fireman on the weekends. That was what I was going to do with my life when I was 4 or 5 years of age. I come out of education and I move into the earning years, as so many of us do. And what do they talk about? The only 2 certainties are death and taxes. I'm sure it was an Irish person who invented that expression. So cheerless. Probably Samuel Beckett. But what happens here is a lot of the dreams and a lot of the aspirations get suppressed. They get suppressed into an overriding concern for security. And I think we could spell security with a dollar sign at the beginning or a euro sign instead of the E. Because an awful lot of it centers around paying for things and having the wherewithal to afford to be able to live. And this is why what I observe far too often when I'm dealing with older clients is that the latter stage of their lives becomes the yearning years, where they're looking back here and they're saying, I wish, if only, if only, if only. You may have seen, this was translated all over the world, the top 5 regrets of the dying. A cancer care palliative nurse collected these from thousands of patients around the world. And what they discovered is that the largest regrets that people who know they are near death, the largest regrets that people have, is not the stupid decisions they made, not the silly things they did in life, but rather the things that they always wanted to do and they never quite got round to doing. These are the things that people are regretful about. So, it is important. It matters a great deal, because otherwise we're not looking forward to a happy period after the workplace. Let's try and find that happiness in the workplace. How? Question number 2. Well, do you remember in your primary school mathematics, you learned the Venn diagram, the little circles, and they all intersect? Here's my very crude and very simplistic approach to this. We take the first circle, which is the circle of skill, and we see where that intersects with the second circle, which is the circle of those things that you enjoy. So the marketplace, for instance, values you for certain qualifications, certain experience, certain skills that you have grafted on and learned through bitter experience in your life. And you have to see where's the intersection between those and the things that you love doing. And if you're fortunate, there's a nice overlap between the two. For too many people, that overlap is very, very small. And there is then, of course, a third circle, because we are in the earning years and we are concerned about security. So there's another overriding concern, which is adequate financial reward along the way. Now, we can all imagine very quickly how this looks when it is going well. Let's look for a second at what can happen that can cause people to be less than happy in their working day. Because what I observe very often is a very small overlap between the three. So if this, for instance, was a 40-hour working week, your EU Working Time Directive, 37.5 hours of a working week, that little triangle in the middle would be, 10 hours or less, 5 hours, 8 hours, too small. So how do we make it bigger? Well, here, as I say, is how sometimes I see it going wrong. This is my case study of one, my example for myself. I was working in a big corporation. I was in the marketing department. And then I grew up and got sense. Okay. So I was very good at what I did, and I was very well rewarded for it. But my satisfaction was low, and in fact my satisfaction dwindled off to being nothing. I have a scar from here to here, 40 staples from my ulcer. I had a bleeding ulcer when I was 24 years of age. It was an American company. What a surprise. One of my children said, "Daddy, what happened to you?" And I said, "Pirates." And you know, kind of was. You've got to find the balance. Here's another classical example. You have somebody who's extremely gifted at something, and they love what they are doing. But they can't make a living from it. This is a guitar player in a band that does cover versions at weddings. And everyone says, "Best guitar player I ever saw." But they can only earn a very small amount of money on a Friday night playing cover versions of other people's music. This is a starving artist. How come there are no starving lawyers? Just a thought. So what do you want? What you want, of course, is the very high degree of overlap between the three and the happy green zone. And when that happens, everyone is happy. Now, we've asked the why question already. The bigger question here is why not? Why does this not happen more often? There are 2 reasons for this. Does anyone know what this is?
You haven't thoroughly questioned your life purpose.
Perfect. Perfect response. Does anyone know what that is? Big green thing in the middle. Pardon me? It's denial. It's denial, correct. Now in Ireland, we don't pronounce our TH very well. We call it D. And we don't say, for instance, the word fire. We don't say fire in Ireland. We say fire. It's just the way we pronounce things. So that's not denial. That's denial. Which is the #1 human defense mechanism. We pretend it's not happening. Why do we do this? Now, Hella talks about the archetypes. And Hella is absolutely right. Of course, I'm all for. Thank you, Hella. But I am more more deconstructionist than that. I take it a little further back in the evolutionary cycle. What is the crossover between our DNA and the DNA of the chimpanzee? 98.5%. We are 98.5% monkey. Monkeys live for the moment. Monkeys don't think much beyond their next banana. And unfortunately, far too many of us allow ourselves fall into that arena, and hence denial is a very useful tool. I won't think about it. I won't think about it. I'm enjoying my banana. I'm not going to think about it. The second big problem is fear. We're afraid of the consequences of taking a courageous step, of standing up for ourselves, of pointing out that something is inequitable, is in some way unfair in our place of work. So we don't. We keep quiet. And that's not healthy either. Again, it's not even a primate response. This is a mammalian response. This goes right back in the brain, into the mammal brain. Now, how do you overcome that? Well, we watch people do this at a different stage in their lives all the time, but we rarely seem to be able to bring that to bear on our daily lives. Let me give you an example. I have 2 children, and my first daughter, when she was at this age, and you can tell how far ago this was, because look at that state-of-the-art VHS player there in the background, eh? Woohoo! When she was at this stage, 10 months, whatever, crawling all over the house. Freedom, loved it, thrilled with herself. We had to screw everything shut and have baby locks on everything so that she didn't kill herself. And the place she wanted to be more than anything else was on the stairs. So she was very good at going up the stairs. Coming down was the problem, so we'd have to constantly go upstairs and get her and bring her back down. She would, all right, fine, up we go, bring her back down. And then I decided, okay, enough. I'm going to teach her how to come down the stairs. So I go up to the top of the stairs beside her, I get down on my hands and my knees, I go, hey, watch this, right? And we go to the front and go, oh, don't like the look of that. And we turn around and we come down backwards, right? And she's looking somewhat mystified, as you are, at me. And I go, no, see, it's dangerous. You turn around, you go backwards, right? Okay. I said, come on, we'll try it together. And I gradually encouraged her, and I hugged in close, and I stayed right behind her, and we started to go down the stairs backwards together. And 2 days later, she is sliding down the stairs. She is Wonder Woman. She is delighted with herself, and we have much more freedom because we're not having to constantly go and deal with her. Now, that by itself, nice little moment. Ha-ha. A few days later, we're out in the garden, and she comes to the front door of the house where there is a change from sandstone to tarmacadam. And she goes, there's no change in height. It's just a change of color. But it was unfamiliar, and therefore dangerous, and therefore you go backwards. We're in the park. She's coming from off the grass to where we are. We're having a little picnic on the grass, and she goes over onto the pathway. And then she comes back. And then she goes again. And then the 4th time, she comes and she goes, bing. Little cognitive connection being made in the brain. Her little monkey brain sent the message up to her human brain, that last little 1.5%, saying, this is safe, you can go forwards. And she made the connection. That is overcoming fear. That's overcoming a very simple fear. We all did it in our lives. We've all observed other people's children or our own children doing the same thing. And yet, as adults, we find it increasingly difficult to bring that sensibility to bear on the real world in front of us. Isn't that strange? So, why does this matter? Why do we have to bring this and give so much thought and energy and bring everybody together here from 19 countries to talk and think about this? Because otherwise, we're receding back into our monkey consciousness and we're not evolving. We need to evolve our ideas around this. We need to look forward as a species. I heard someone express the idea about there being limits on human achievement and so on and so forth, and then someone say, no, the sky's the limit. And my mother used the famous remark, which was, if the sky is the limit, why are there footprints on the moon? The sky's not the limit on this. We can go as far as we choose to go. We have to take the decision to do it. And that ultimately is about expressing desire and exerting control. This is an English politician called Tony Benn, died a couple of years ago. Very, very clever, very erudite man. And I loved this expression. So, if you as an individual, as a manager, if you as a department head, if you as a senior executive in your company, make the decision that your people are going to be difficult to manage, difficult to govern, then you're looking forward. If you as an individual are saying, I want to take this to the next level and I deserve happiness as I go forward in my working life, then you are saying, you are making a pact with yourself that I will remain educated. I will make myself more and more confident on a daily basis. I will look for opportunities to do that. And I will be as healthy in my head as I can as I'm bringing that concept forward out into the world. Because again, remember, they're not against you. They are for themselves. No one's standing in your way except you. Now, as I leave you and go back to Ireland, thanks for this, by the way. This could be very useful when I get home. It occurs to me that I have two ways of looking at this. I can take the way I've always thought about Ireland and the character I have portrayed for many years in life, or I can think the way another little Irish man once did in the past.